welcome to the Integrate This EdTech podcast. I'm Jeremy Mikla, joined by co-host David Berner. If you happen to be watching this on YouTube, you'll notice that it's just the two of us today. We don't have another guest that's going to be joining us, but partly because, David and I feel like sometimes we have things that we want to share and we have things that we want to talk about. And sometimes when you bring in that guest, which is, don't get me wrong, always valuable, it's nice to just have that dialogue back and forth between the two of us about topics that we're kind of concerned about or issues that we want to bring up or just even the things that we're doing, right? And David and I do a lot of different sessions where we're with groups of teachers or groups of school leaders, and it oftentimes comes around to, with AI, how are we getting AI into the hands of teachers in ways that is going to improve their instruction, or ways that is going to accelerate student learning, things that we are all concerned about as educators. And so today's episode is really kind of around this idea of what is professional learning like in an age of AI. And so I think, David, why don't you tell us a little bit about maybe some of the things that you've been doing lately, or how you're trying to go about introducing and broaching that topic to teachers.
Yeah, I think one of the main things that I've been doing a lot lately, and I got this idea from another colleague, Mike Cray. There's this concept of liberating structures that and there's a bunch of them, but like I just employed one into my session to really start to drive conversation. 'Cause I think one of the biggest challenges, no matter when you're doing some big trainings, is, and basically all of mine have been on AI over the last couple of years. The biggest thing is you have a lot of folks either coming to a conference and they're together and they work at different districts, and so they could find value in conversating with each other at the beginning and kind of see what they're doing. And the same would apply for even within a school district too. I think that it's easy to assume that just because someone is at the same district as someone else, they're in touch or whatever. But I think that silos are real, and we get into those pretty easily, and then you don't really have tons of opportunity to share what you're doing. So one of the things I've been trying to do more of, just to try to make my trainings better, is kind of this idea of, I believe it's like, I think it's technically 4-3-2-1. You could kind of modify that a little bit. So typically what I do is I'll have where two people near each other will just share. I'll give them a question to consider, like, how is your district approaching AI, let's say, and or what is your concerns around AI at your district, right? And the two would talk, and then you would have those two discuss for about a minute, then move into more of a kind of like roundtable. So discuss with two other people near you. What is it that you were talking about? What common themes did you find? And then eventually you get to where you're sharing out as the large group. And I do find that this helps quite a bit with, rather than if I just start from the beginning and I'm up there at the front and I say, okay, what's going on with your districts around AI, right? Nobody says anything, and so that's where I really like this type of thing, because they've had an opportunity to think about it for a bit, talk to somebody else, talk to a smaller group, and then get that out to the larger group. And it's helped with providing some insights to the whole group, and then I can kind of work off of those and see if anybody else has similar things going on across the room or whatever. But that's one thing that I've done a lot lately, and it's been very helpful. But what about you?
Yeah, and I can definitely see where, I think both you and I have talked enough that we know that I don't know. I think of it as a traditional sit and get model. But and I don't know if that ever really was effective at any point, but it certainly isn't in at least in the trainings that we do. Like, you've got to be able to allow people, I think, to be able to share where they are currently at, right? Like, we're all coming to the AI and the for all the great things that it could potentially do and all the risks that it potentially could bring, that it's important to be able, I think, to have those conversations with other people about where they're at, and just recognizing that all viewpoints matter, even if they disagree with how you think it should be used, and that it's just important to respect not just the viewpoints that people have, but where are they in their journey of AI. And I think one of the things that along and I usually put a slide to that effect in any sort of visuals that I bring in an AI presentation, is because I really want people to know that that's where I'm coming from, and I'm going to honor and value those. And I think it's a professional learning situation, right? So if teachers aren't feeling like they're getting something valuable from that they can turn around and then use in the classroom, then I haven't really done my job. So I try to take people from wherever they're at and just really try to build their capacity from there. Whether it's offering different pathways to whatever steps it is that they're trying to achieve, whether it is allowing them time to interact with different tools, or if it's sharing out in like a similar method to what you said. And I think that's kind of important to recognize in presentations, especially when it comes to AI.
Yeah, absolutely. As you've been going around and working with people and um, doing these presentations on AI, what do you feel like educators are asking a lot about?
I Here's one that it came up just this week. I was with a group of educators, middle school teachers, and I could tell that there was a lot of anxiety that was in the room, and it really came down to some teachers that were very much opposed to any sort of use of AI. They wanted to block it all. And I've seen that in other places too, that they just feel like if they can't have some control over it, then we should just not allow access to it at all. And so, that I think is a recurring thing that I've heard. And I don't know, maybe that's not even a question that they have, but it's definitely a concern that they have. And definitely there's some others. I'm sure you would probably agree too. The elephant in the room is academic integrity and cheating.
Mhm.
How do you go about preventing students from using AI inappropriately? I think that's probably the biggest one that I hear from. But how about you? What are some of the other things that you hear?
I would say that mainly a lot of the teachers are just looking for um, how is this going to help me in my teaching? Like, how is this going to be something that I can apply, that's going to help me in practical ways, to enhance learning in their classroom.
Mhm,
And then I think one thing too, just being in the space that we've been in with the whole AI guidance conversation, there everybody I think is trying to figure out what is acceptable at their district. And so one thing that can be kind of difficult is when, from say my role is you have to go, and yours too. I mean, you go into a place, you go into a school, and you're there for a limited amount of time. And if there's really no direction as far as like policy or guidelines go, it can be hard for teachers to know what's acceptable. Um,
mhm,
and I'm not saying like everybody has to have a policy or have guidelines, but the one thing that I think we both have agreed on in the past is like just start talking about it at your district, right? Um,
mhm,
make sure like a bunch of people are at the table and talk about how it impacts you, how it impacts students, how it impacts the district as a whole, right? Like positive and negative. I think that's a lot of stuff that keeps coming up too. Is how should we be using it, and how should students be using it? What should students learn about AI? Um, I would say those are the ones that come up quite a bit. Um, so
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think there's definitely those practical ways that teachers want to be able to use the tools themselves, but they are still concerned that if I give this to students, that they're going to use it either to cheat or they're going to use it in inappropriate ways. And so I think too that, teachers are looking for administrators that are going to support them in whatever their decisions are in their classroom when it comes to student use. And as long as it's, grounded within policies established by the school. And they want to know that they'll feel supportive, that if there is, and I'm sure there always will be, inappropriate uses of students, of the technology, but
Hmm.
that there's a plan in place from the administration to be able to provide those consequences to students, without taking away the opportunities for students to be able to learn.
Yeah, and I would say too, like one other thing is just there is it can be difficult to know what tools to use. Educators really
Mhm.
aren't sure like what tools should they use or um, yeah, what's going to fit best for what they're trying to do. What I know we've talked about in the past is like our the concept of just like learning foundational things like safe, ethical, and effective use and things that can be applied regardless of the tool that you use. And I think and it is overwhelming. I mean, there is a lot of tools, and the tools do add features pretty constantly, as we've seen. Um, but I would say just getting some exposure to one and staying up with that would probably be a good start. Or
Mhm.
you don't want to be like necessarily jumping all over the place. Um, and actually, too, I mean, you might be limited anyway, just based on your school, right? So for a lot of schools, honestly, it makes sense for them to utilize Gemini because they're already Google schools. Like that's something that
Mhm.
I've talked about with some districts too. Is you might have someone knocking on the door constantly, like, "Let's buy Magic School" or "Let's buy School AI," and it's like, well, those are great tools, but also, is it going to be the best fit for your district? Where they're currently at. I don't
Mhm.
know. I think that's important to talk about too. But
I think you and I definitely have ideas about how to approach some of those questions, right? But we're also fortunate enough that we've been able to have some conversations, I think, with some pretty influential people in the
mhm.
space of educational use of AI. Are there any, sort of statements, any sort of tips that some of the people that we've had an opportunity to chat with have provided that you think offer insights into how to address any or all of these questions?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think like that like Amanda Bickerstaff. Obviously, we had the opportunity to our first exposure to Amanda was probably more through the what was it like the who went to a city thing.
It
I
was
mean,
Canvas Caravan, I think is what it
yeah,
was.
that's right. Yeah, and she did like an hour and a half, I think it was, keynote, and took us through some things. But one of the things that she really emphasizes that I think is extremely important is AI literacy. It's not optional. It's something that we need both. Well, there's a large emphasis on students and how to
Mhm,
use them, how to use AI tools responsibly, right? But as we've seen and we know. Um, it can be really difficult to do that if you haven't even set the stage for your teachers to know how to use it responsibly. And so I would say like her advocating for AI literacy is a huge thing, and it's something that like I've latched onto a lot, and you and I have had discussions about previously, and we had a deep discussion with her about the importance of AI literacy and some of the work they're doing. And I think it's pretty clear, like if you look around at some of the big organizations that are doing work, they understand this concept. I mean, they
mhm,
understand that it, AI literacy and learning about AI and how to use AI is going to be the most important thing for students moving forward. Um, and so you and I, and obviously too, like we can't talk about every single person, but this would connect to even like the work that Jeff Riley's doing, right? Day of AI stuff, like that's another one where these some of these folks and these organizations really understand the importance of AI literacy and building out courses or structures for that, and I think that's huge. How about you?
Yeah, and I think, that focus on AI literacy and the training necessary for both students to learn it, but teachers also have to feel like they're competent enough to be able to talk about those issues and have those conversations with students. I think is definitely helpful too. I remember the conversation that we had with Carl Hooker, and it gets in, I think, to a point where we've had these conversations where we talk about students wanting to use AI just to push the easy button. Their teacher assigns some work for them to do at home, but the questions are such that the student could easily just turn to AI to get the answers. And if that's the type of thing that we're designing for experiences for students, is that something they can push the easy button for? Are we designing the right learning experiences, right? And I remember, Carl saying, the goal should not be to try to stop students from using AI, but rather to kind of think about, more critically of ourselves, the types of learning situations that we're developing for our students, and are they going to critically challenge the students to think more meaningfully or to think more critically along the way? Because AI can also do that. AI can play that devil's advocate for you, or you could use AI as a Socratic tutor if you prompt it ahead of time to not just give you answers, but rather, walk you through how to solve a particular problem, or maybe to even help you develop a solution that you would have to a problem you wouldn't have come up with on your own. And in that way, not just think critically, but also think more creatively.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that there's a lot of room here for teachers to be explorative with how they're design things. Like one of the things that I've heard the most is probably like I have this assessment and teacher and students are cheating on it. And it's like, well, you can't really blame the student for the
Mhm,
assignment that you're giving and they're cheating on it. It's like you're going to have to redesign that assessment. You have to come up with something that is going to be a bit more AI resistant. And even if it incorporates AI in, that's great. Like we've heard this before too, right, Jeremy? Like where it's include a piece in there where you're actually having students prompt and then turn that in as part of their entire assessment, almost like a portfolio of their entire work for that assessment,
mhm,
right? And listen, I like I know that's not easy. It's easy to say like, oh, just redesign the assessment so it incorporates these things. I get that that's not like an easy thing to do, but there at least has to be some attempts to start to move in that direction. Maybe just taking like one unit and working on that for the time being and how that might look. One of the other quotes that we're going to point out is just from Alana Winnick, and talking about we don't want a teacher to feel like they're going to get in trouble for trying something and failing.
mhm,
Um, it's like just learn from it, right? So say you want to redesign that assessment to incorporate AI and prompting and all that, just try it, right? It might not work out, and that's fine. And same would go for students too, right? Give them some room to try some of these things and um, I don't know, like you and I, we do stuff all the time, and I feel like there's little failures in all of them, and we try to
mhm.
make things better as we approach the next training or something. It's like nothing's perfect. I think just giving it a try is what you really want to advocate for, right?
And what a great way to show your students that as their teacher, that you also want to encourage them to be able to take those risks to challenge the way that they think about something. And if they fail, they're failing forward, right? And you're there. And by you modeling that for students, you show how you're also going to be respectful of them as they try to do the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's new to all of us. Like, there's no way we're gonna all know exactly how to do it right away, right? You have to
Mhm.
kind of figure it out, and
Right.
I think that's okay.
One of the common things that I think as I look back on a lot of the conversations that we've had with AI, I don't think it matters who the guest was, because I think for all of them, it came back to this idea of, if we're not using AI in ways that is going to center the human experience, that's going to advance the human experience, that we might be missing the boat on something too. So I think that's another big thing that I've taken away from the conversations that we have. I'm not going to pinpoint one person or another that talked about it, but one of the strategies that I've liked to share recently in trainings that I have done too is this idea of HAIH, that you start with a human problem, a human, question. Then, when you've taken it to that certain point where you need some feedback on that, and, maybe there's not the best human available, it isn't near you, but turn to AI to get some feedback, right? And then, whatever the AI produces for you, then rework it and make it your own again, because you have to put your own interpretation. You have to decide how that's going to work for you. And so I think about it, like you talked about, maybe a good thing that teachers could do as they try to fail forward or to take a risk is, to think of a lesson or to think of that unit that they need to rework a little bit, right? So they know they've done that lesson before. They've come at it from an approach like, yeah, this is okay, but I know it could be better. So they're already thinking about what that issue, that problem is that they have. Then if they take that and they work on a prompt with AI to help maybe come up with some different solutions. And, we've talked about SAMR before as perhaps one model that can help to transform a lesson in conversations that we've had with Becky Keene and Ruben Puntadura, as one of those types of things, but actually asking AI to help you develop some alternative strategies, right? But then again, after you have the AI develop some of those things for you, you need to put your human lens back in, and you need to look at it because you know your students, you understand how they're best to learn, that you need to take what is suggested and rework it to get it to fit your own situation.
Yeah, and I think people do that. It's like
Yeah.
one line that I always use like during my trainings when we do a lot of hands-on time, right? And one of the things is when you're doing that last H part, the refine part, and iterate, like the
Mhm.
thing that you always have to remind everyone is you don't ever have to be satisfied with what it gave you. Like you
Right.
get to say when it's done, right? Like and so you get to insert yourself back in there and really come out with a end product that you feel confident in, you know, and you don't have to just put a one liner in, get what get their response and go, okay, sounds good, I'll take that,
Yeah.
and and I'm off, right?
Wouldn't it
uh
be kinda like, like when you Google, when you used to Google something, and we wouldn't be satisfied with just taking the first result that popped in from your search inquiry. So why would we be satisfied with the first return to a prompt that AI is giving you?
yeah, yeah, um and you do have to review it too, because it's obviously taking it from multiple sources, right? It's not like you're just
Mhm.
going into like one link and then you review it. It's pulling from multiple sources, and then you have to evaluate whether that's any good or not. Um, and I think one thing, obviously, you and I, we have with our time in working with AI and having to know it well so that we can train others on it. I think one of the advantages we have is we get quite a bit of time with it. So for me, like if I'm trying to work on something, I really spend quite a bit of time in one chat and just continue to like coax it and stuff. And I do think that there are avenues for those that don't have as much time though. I think teachers oftentimes will reference like gems, and gems is something that they could utilize that is more of a time saver because it's already constructed in a way that's reliable,
Mhm.
whereas like we might spend more time in the open chat trying to get things built or whatever, spending a lot of time in there. So I do understand that like some people don't have that same amount of time, but
So when you're doing trainings, like what do you think is really working that drives that point home to it? Like you just mentioned gems, right?
Mhm.
And if you want to learn more about gems, David and I have tutorials on that, and you should go check those out. But what I really like about gems is, like you said, it's a quick win. It is something that a teacher, if you help them develop a gem, that they can constantly go back to, and they feel like, boy, they've really now have a tool that they can use that really can consistently help them, along that same issue over and over and over again, so that they take a lot of value in that. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, are there the other things that you think is really, really working in trainings that you've shared?
Yeah, as of right now, I mean, having having open conversations at the beginning to kind of gauge where everybody's at, and I mentioned that at the beginning, and just talking with people in the room, even if they're at your same district, that's hugely important, and can provide opportunities too for other people to speak up and go, "Oh yeah, I've tried this thing," or I've actually played around with this a little bit, and maybe that becomes someone that is a reliable go-to for some people at the
Mhm,
district. Because, and so I think like the conversations are huge, and then um, given the time that teachers have with the different professional development, which is, I mean, it's very little. So if the biggest thing for me is to show an idea, um, to give like some direction on the idea, and then have something built for them so that they can try it. They really need the hands-on time. Like it's extremely important because um, if we're just like talking about the concepts for an hour and a half, and then they get a little bit of time, um, we were both teachers. We know like you're going to leave the PD, and then you're going to go back to the things that you have to do for that day and the next day and that week, and you
mhm.
know what I mean. Like, um, not to say that there's windows in there too that you could probably try some things out, but hands-on time, in my opinion, is one of the most priceless things for teachers during an AI session or any session, but an AI session for sure.
Yeah, and I
What
think
about you?
along with that, sometimes when people do hands-on stuff, you gotta understand the people in the room a little bit, or, at least, and if you don't understand the people in the room because you walk in and it's all new people, give them multiple avenues to be able to try something.
Hmm.
If they feel comfortable after you've, explained something, and then they're trying that hands-on piece, but you know what, they would rather, turn and work with the person next to them because they're a colleague, and that, maybe they teach the same content or grade level, is allow for some of that co-exploration to take place too, right? And to be able to, as they're exploring, they're also sharing. And that's just really, I think, gonna not just drive home the how to use the tool, but also to know that they're gonna have a support person, if that is that colleague that's gonna be able to, work with them well beyond that time that you're with them.
Yeah, I would say too, I don't know if you've done this, but one of the things I did early on that was like, um, that was difficult for me is if when I was doing the show portion,
Mhm.
I would always kind of default to like social studies examples at the
Yeah.
upper level because that's what I taught. And like your time is limited, so you're trying to just show an example, right? And one of the things that I would always just naturally default to is a social studies example. And so one of the things that I've been trying to do over the for a while now, but like having when you build out like a prompt or you build out a gem or something like that, have them for the different levels too, like elementary
Mhm.
teachers, because it's the
Mhm.
most difficult thing for me because I'm like showing an example, and while it might be a fine example, I think it resonates more if you have like one specifically for that content area or that grade level group,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I don't know what you think, but that was one of my
Yeah.
pitfalls. Like I just kept doing that where it was like, so I've been trying to
I
move away from that.
I'm challenging myself to reach outside of that comfort zone too, of rather
Yeah.
just default to social studies because I know it,
Yeah.
and secondary in particular. So that when I went to this school earlier this week, and I wanted to demonstrate a gem. So I actually made a gem for music teachers, band and choir teachers.
Yeah.
And so they were the example that I showed. And I asked before I did it, raise your hand if you're a music teacher, and 2 people raised their hand. And I'm like, you never get examples for your content area, do you? And they were like shaking their heads no. So then I said, well,
Yeah.
this one's for you, and I went and showed it. And I think whether or not they're going to use that example or not, like they were just honored that I recognized them.
Yeah. Well, it's good. Like one of the things, if you and I were in a if we were in a training just together, just the two of us, we could do social studies examples all day. but
Yeah.
but what the biggest thing is, I think so many times I've heard that like the elementary teachers don't feel like AI is really for them, right?
Hmm.
And I can understand that maybe more from like the student side, but from a teacher side and building curriculum and creating things, like it's totally for them. And so that's why I've been trying to have more elementary examples so that it makes sense for them. So then they can go, oh, like I could create, using a gem, or I could create or do a prompt with something that is specific to kindergarten, right? Like
Hmm.
that's something that I think is really good to do, because there is misconceptions out there, of I'm an elementary teacher, this doesn't apply to me, right?
Right. One of the things that we ask a lot of our guests about, especially when it comes to AI, is where they see it going in the next, 2, 3, 5 years, whatever it happens to be. Like, I'm not going to put you on the spot or anything to put your tomorrow glasses on, like Matt Miller might say, but I do want to think about, though, what's next when it comes to professional learning. What do you see are things that, you know, people like you and I should be focusing on when we lead trainings, or what can teachers expect to get out of trainings that they attend?
It's a good question. I don't really honestly know. I think that well, we kind of know that agentic AI, right, is going to
Hmm.
become more and more at the forefront. And we may see like teachers just, if they have the time, they could design chatbots for helping them with stuff, and have a whole army of chatbots, or like Kunal talk to us. It's kind of like the Matrix,
Hmm.
right? Like the swarms. Um, it's really hard for, I don't know like what that would look like necessarily, but I think it will change. I think maybe what it is it becomes more, it's just more personalized, and you can
Hmm.
become, or like you're in a session, but you can utilize chatbots in such a way where the learning is extremely personalized and focused on what you need the most at that moment. um, I don't know. I don't think that there's a real concrete answer.
I'm
Just
sure there's
all
not.
It's just all prediction, but I
Yeah.
think like more personalized learning, like that's a huge emphasis in AI, is the
Hmm.
ability to personalize learning. And as we talked about at the beginning, currently, the only time that they really get to personalize learning is when we deliver or when we get to the hands-on time, because then they can go, I want to try this because
Hmm.
I know that I want to work on this unit, and I'm going to try this gem because it's going to help that unit. And maybe it's just more and more of that, and it's becoming more personalized all the time. But
And I
honestly,
like what you're
I don't
saying,
know.
though. Yeah, I like what you're saying about the personalizing aspect of it, is because really, if you think back to one of the things that we mentioned at the beginning here today, is that you want to be able to provide an opportunity for all of your attendees to be able to build capacity from where they're at to learn something from that. And if it is personalized in such a way, then I think that's just going to be more relevant to that individual. um, and so I think that's a pretty big thing with it.
Yeah,
I,
you know what I think,
yeah.
Jeremy, is the common thing is like we still have instances where it's one size fits all, right? It's
Yeah.
hard to avoid that, and maybe that is the shift. Maybe like, well, part of the shift where that's going to be something that we can start to dwindle down a bit, and it can be not just one size fits all type of thing.
Right. Especially in certain things. I get, at like back to school workshops, there sometimes needs to be one size fits all because that message just needs to be
Hmm.
relayed to the staff at a particular meeting or a particular training. So I just, but not definitely not all professional learning. And I think professional learning about AI in particular, I like your one size fits all is not the best way to learn about AI, for sure.
Yeah, right. Yep.
I think one thing that again, I can't predict the future with any certainty either, but one of the things that I think is going to start to happen is as we do build enough capacity of teachers in understanding AI literacy, how it works, using it in safe, ethical, and effective manners, is that we're going to start to see AI as not necessarily just a tool that you go and you pull off of the shelf, but rather that AI just becomes kind of that personal assistant that you're going to go to over and over again, and develop. I'm not trying to personify it. I just don't know a better way to say it, but persistent conversations with, over time, that you're going to kind of use as a sounding board to give you some feedback when you need immediate feedback. Things that you just wouldn't use a tool for, right? But you use that assistant to help you with. And so that's one of the things that I think we'll start to see some of our trainings is working with teachers on how to develop an assistant.
Yeah, and I'd be really curious too, like what I would be curious to see how this happens is with the AI agent thing, all of the
Mhm.
like the repetitive tasks. I would be curious like what ones or how that's going to help tackle those things in the background so then teachers don't even have to think about them and how much
Mhm.
like brain space that frees up. And
Yeah.
it's kind of the promise, right? Like give you more time to work with students and be present as opposed to like thinking about 10,000 different things or 10,000 emails you have to respond to, right? Like agents that take in your inbox and then make the responses, send the responses, and then gives you a little summary where you just read through it and go, okay, check, 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 right? It's good.
Mhm.
I'll be really curious to see how that all kind of pans out.
Right. And I think one other thing here, I'm just going to add one more
Yep.
to this is that, I think professional learning around AI needs to be continual. We've experienced how many different shifts I think in generative AI in just the last 3 years, and the types of things that you're able to accomplish using AI. And if teachers aren't given the opportunity for continued learning, they might get stuck. And so I think that's another thing that I think I foresee needing to be very valued and important moving forward.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. That someone said this yesterday actually. We're all continuously learning, right? Like there's never a time where you're like, oh, I'm done.
Hmm.
It's and so I think just keeping that mindset and allowing opportunities for it is for all of us is good.
Yeah. So, as we are going forth here, what sort of professional learning opportunities are you looking forward to? I'm not trying to just overlook the teachers. What do instructional coaches, what do tech integrationists have to look forward to that are coming up that you think might be important for people to pay attention to?
Yeah, as far as event stuff goes, I can just share here. One thing that we're really excited about is our aid team is putting on our second annual virtual symposium. So doesn't matter where you're from, you can access this symposium. And one of the things that's really cool about it is we've been doing the book study on AI optimism, which was written by Becky Keene. Becky Keene is our keynote speaker, and that book covers AI and as it relates to the Sammer model, which you've done some cool stuff with too, with the gem. And then Ruben Puentadora will actually be coming on after Becky, and he's the creator of the Sammer model that has been around in ed tech for a long time now. And so having the both of them kind of discussing their work and the importance of how we tackle AI, what it actually looks like when integrated into a classroom at the different depths of the SAMR level or the SAMR model. That's all great. And then we'll have a full slate of sessions around AI in various topics. prompting, how SAMR model will have stuff with the large language models and how they work, how to spot AI generated content, programming with AI, all sorts of stuff throughout the day. And probably the coolest part about this is that if you sign up for the live event and you can't make it, that's totally fine, because we'll have where we record everything, put it in our PD on demand course, and all registrants get put in the PD on demand course, and you can access it over the year for anytime that you have time to do so. So you can always come back, and we are doing like multiple breakout sessions this year per time slot. So if you want to go to one and then you want to watch the recording of one later on, you can definitely do that. So very cool stuff there, and we're pretty excited about that. Um, and then as far as live events go, we both have our summer events. I know you have
Mhm.
like ECMAC, right?
Mhm.
And so I don't know if you want to say anything there, but
May 4th, more in Minnesota. There'll be more coming out about that
okay.
soon.
Yep. Yeah.
That's good
Yeah.
enough for now.
Yep. Yeah. So it's in it's we do it together, kind of like complement each other. You guys have like ECMAC, we come up for that and present together, and then we
Yep.
have EdTech Connect just a couple days later, and that's in Wilmer. So we'll have a couple live events too for people to check out. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, we'll definitely make sure to link the AIDS symposium in the description of the show. But David, hey, this was a lot of fun just to chat with you today for once, and
yeah, same.
get to hear your lovely voice so much more.
Yeah, likewise.